My boyfriend is depressed. Drug treatment and expert consultation cost tens of thousands a month. In order to cure him, I didn't pick up manuscripts and run takeaways day and night. My friends advised me to be careful of overwork. Until one day, I grabbed the errand list in the rich villa area. The high-end Japanese takeaway worth 18,000 yuan was respectfully handed to the order owner. When I looked up, I saw my boyfriend, who should have been psychologically guided, standing in front of the door, looking at me in astonishment. Shan't you should be in the hospital? Lin Hanyan. I looked at the elegantly and luxuriously decorated villa, holding the Japanese food box with my left hand painfully. Obviously, the temperature reached 40 degrees, but I trembled like an ice cellar. I have only seen this kind of place in idol dramas. Sorry Luo, listen to my explanation. Dr. Lu has something to do in the afternoon. I just came to my friend's place to play. In the face of the sudden bump, Lin Hanyan pulled my sleeve with some loss. This is his usual apology. Hundreds of attempts have been tried, but at this moment they fail. I knocked off Lin Hanyan's hand coldly. The custom-made shirt brand on his body makes me not famous. But in the end, it is ironic that it is more suitable for the temperament of his rich children than those basic clothes. I lowered my eyes, took out my mobile phone, and clicked on the appointment interface of Qingqing Hospital. After finding that Dr. Lu of the Department of Psychology still had a spare number today, he was not even interested in exposing him. Taking a deep breath, I cleared my thoughts and said calmly, Lin Hanyan, is it fun? A poor teenager pretending to be depressed beside me is reluctant to buy a cup of milk tea. In fact, he is a rich prince who costs 18,000 yuan for a meal. The corners of my lips moved, and I looked at the man in front of me resentfully. I didn't even know when my eyes were full of tears. You really lied to me like a fool. 88. I need to run 6,000 orders, and I have to run for 2 months. The most ridiculous thing is that the only interface in the background of my mobile phone is not turned off. It's still the message sent to Lin Hanyan half an hour ago. I said I would have an extra meal tonight, and I was going to make his favorite lotus root soup. Because the single owner in the rich area is generous, he gave a reward of 100 yuan. It's just that I never thought that this tip was rewarded by Lin Hanyan himself. Lin Hanyan always hugged me in the middle of the night, and said that he was the only one in the world who would not question my love. Even his parents' love for him is not as pure as mine. These whispers once made me happy that I could be a lucky person in the surroundings who sincerely became rare. It's just that looking back now, I think no one would be so stupid. He risked heatstroke for the 5 yuan high-temperature subsidy, just to make up for his medical expenses this month as soon as possible. I haven't slept enough for 5 hours for a long time. I dreamed that you will recover one day earlier. You know this very well, don't you? The voice of the question gradually choked. Lin Hanyan's originally calm expression showed a trace of a crack. His eyes turned slightly red and he nodded. In that crowded old and shabby one-bedroom apartment, it takes half an hour to walk to the subway station. He watched me work hard, and watched me break 2 pieces for $1. Watching me be embarrassed, but desperately paying for the hypocritical experience game, just to treat him with the depression in this setting. He was like a creator throughout the whole process, watching coldly. I will send a sum of money to your bank card, which can be regarded as compensation. I'm sorry for this matter. Lin Hanyan lowered his head slightly, with guilt and a trace of helplessness in his eyes. He realized that he could no longer make a word, so he simply gave up. My fingers stiffly took out the wrinkled order slip in my pocket, which was half a meter long, and one side was full of the highest grade meat. Then he kneaded it into a ball and smashed it at him with all his strength. Lin Hanyan did not dodge, and his expression was sad and mixed with remorse. The air conditioning in the room brings a little coolness. Under the cicadas, footsteps come from not far away. Then what came to my ears? A woman's voice was delicate. Hanyan, haven't you got the takeaway yet? I'm starving to death. Lin Hanyan and I stopped the stalemate, and his expression changed slightly. When we looked back together, we saw a young girl in a lace pajama skirt coming over. Lin Hanyan came forward in a panic and stopped him. Why did you come out? I'll go back to the room right away. Good boy, go in first. But the girl seems to be stubborn to find out. She bypassed Lin Hanyan and looked at me with a smile, with a few traces of familiarity and contempt in her apricot eyes. This is. No one responded. Seeing that we were silent to each other, she curled the corners of her mouth. Then he naturally grabbed Lin Hanyan's arm and pulled down the pink nightgown. The red marks on the neck and the curves under the fabric can be seen at a glance. She leaned against Lin Hanyan's side weakly. The man's uneasy eyes fell on me. I turned my head in despair and closed my eyes slightly. The sweat-soaked hair stuck sticky to the face, and the temples were in pain. Even if I am dull, I should know what happened. Originally, I thought I was just a rich man experiencing bad luck in the civilian game. Now it seems that I am still the seasoning in the love story of the rich family's children. It's really bad luck after all. So I didn't want to stay any longer. I turned around and packed up the takeaway box and was ready to leave. But the girl suddenly stopped me. Wait, are you Han Yan's slum girlfriend who plays outside the school? I didn't recognize him in the takeaway suit. Are you Jiang Mingluo from the grammar school? for I stopped and looked back at her. Half an hour later, it was finally confirmed. She is my senior sister. Shenju, who has a superior family background and appearance, is praised by the stars. But there was a relationship between us, because she secretly operated to help others take away my poor student allowance. I have never been as attentive to Shenju as the people around me. Seeing that my eyes were dark and unnatural, Shenju took Lin Hanyan's hand and tightened it more. She pretended to be happy and said in a delicate voice, "Hanyan didn't expect that I complained to you casually last year that there was a fake senior girl, who hated it very much. After a few questions, you actually helped me get Jiang Mingluo. I admire this method. It's so clever." Shenju raised his eyes, glanced at me and continued, "Gao Ming, who made Jiang Mingluo, a talented girl in our college, play like a dog." The hands hanging on the trouser legs slowly clenched their fists. The cold air in the room blew on me, but I couldn't feel the coolness and relief. Ordinary people's future, feelings, money, sweat and other things, for this group of people, are like weeds on the roadside. They not only ignore them, but also trample on their feet and spit. Shenju approached Lin Hanyan's cheek and kissed him, as if he was a reward for fooling me so far, and his eyes glanced at me provocatively. Then, as if thinking of something, her expression became strange and crazy. She asked, "Mingluo, did Lin Hanyan say that she was depressed?" I frowned and didn't deny it. When the woman in front of him saw this, she suddenly smiled and bent down. The words in my mouth made me shiver all over. "That's because I told Han Yin that you have a younger brother, who committed suicide because of depression. As long as Lin Hanyan says that he is depressed, you must not be fooled. That's true." 5. As soon as the words fell, there was a momentary stagnation in the air, leaving only the cicadas that I lost my mind with a bang. I clenched my lower lip, took off the takeaway helmet and grabbed it in my hand, and slammed at Lin Hanyan crazily. "If you can't hold back your anger, why don't you open a steamed bun shop tomorrow?" My chest fluctuated violently, and I cursed. "Is it depression? Pretend to be poor, right? You like to poke people's sore spots, right? You deserve that your parents don't love you, you bastard. You deserve your father to beat your mother in front of you. Why doesn't he beat you to death together? I'll beat you to death for your father today." In the year I got along with Lin Hanyan, whether it was acting or true feelings, we had a past of complaining about each other's weaknesses. So I know that what he can never let go of is that his parents' indifference and neglect to him make him experience the love of his family since he was a child. And at this moment, this has become my weapon to verbally attack him and curse him. I didn't wait for the two of them to react, and I hit Lin Hanyan's face fiercely again. Because of the anger, I gasped and didn't get enough rest for a long time, which made my head dizzy. At the moment when Shenju mentioned his brother Jiang Qilua, my reason, which I had been holding on all afternoon, disintegrated in an instant. He is me, and no one can touch me. Until Shenju pulled me away, Lin Hanyan didn't retaliate. He covered his mouth, and his hands were covered with blood. "Are you all right, Hanyan? I'll call the police right now. This crazy woman is dying. How dare she hit you? I'll let my father in a moment." Shenju's angry voice was full of tears, but Lin Hanyan grabbed her hand and shook his head. "No, don't. It's all I owe her." He straightened his hair that was messed up by me, got up and walked to me. He took out a gold card from his pocket and handed it to me. "The password is your birthday. I know things can't be undone, but forget it, I'm sorry." I sneered, and there was only coldness and hatred in his eyes. "Diili." I pulled the gold card hard from his finger, left this sentence, and turned around and left. 6. There are 770,000 yuan in the card. After asking the boss of the takeaway outsourcing company for a settlement salary, I resigned. A 23 square meter one-bedroom apartment can be seen at a glance. At that time, Lin Hanyan moved out of the dormitory, because he said that his depression was getting worse and worse, so he wanted me to accompany him every day. Originally, I was not unprepared for Lin Hanyan, who bravely broke into my life. But seeing that he had the same symptoms as his brother, I softened and confused. For a moment, it was difficult for me to tell whether I was mostly in love with him in the past, or out of infinite guilt for my brother and eager to compensate. He just wants to help Lin Hanyan cure his depression crazily and paranoidly. In this way, the nightmares I can't get through will be alleviated. Speaking of which, things are not less than a year. But the couple's belongings in pairs with him were all dazzling, and they were all thrown into the trash can. I listened to the sound of the old air conditioner, stared at the ceiling, slowly got rid of the continuous work of day and night, and fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I can't count how many times I have dreamed of Jiang Qilua in the bathtub. He lay bloodless in the red liquid. His whole body was as pale as a porcelain doll, with no temperature and no sound. The medicine bottle fell on his drooping fingertips, and his slightly closed slender eyelashes were the same as the curve when he waited for me to doze off after studying in the past. It's just that this time, I won't open it again, and I won't rub my sleepy eyes and ask my sister when she will go to bed. In the mobile phone, he cleared the chat records with everyone, and finally only left me sister, I'm sorry, and 3569, the transfer of 81. This is all the money in his pocket. That year, the spring was in full bloom, and Jiang Qi, who was like the proud son of heaven, left in the best season. And I was trapped in that spring forever. 7. The sound of the plastic bag behind the door woke me up. A man in a black shirt squatted by the trash can, sneaking through something. Who? The man paused and slowly turned around. It's Lin Hanyan. He is still wearing a mask, and has several bandages on his face. I held my aching forehead, and forgot that he still had the key to the rental house. The couple's rings, water cups, watches and souvenirs thrown into the trash can in the afternoon were taken out by him, and placed neatly on the ground. What are you doing with these? Lin Hanyan lowered his eyebrows when he heard the words, and couldn't see the emotion clearly. Finally, I came to pack something and take it away. They are all worthless things, and Master Lin also likes them. Sitting up from the bed, I took the case to look at what else important items there was in the room. In this case, I also plan to go back to school and continue to live in the dormitory, so I'm going to return the rent here. Lin Hanyan held the worthless silver ring in his hand, rubbed his thumb gently on the ring, and whispered in a lonely voice. I know you don't believe me, but I'm really sincere and really only believe in you. No one has ever loved me so sincerely. I don't want to miss you. I waved my hand, lowered my head and sneered, and the afternoon scene sarcastically appeared in my mind. What is the truth? Did you specially ask me to send you a meal after the fight because you love me? Should I still thank you? I can explain what happened to Shinju. Nothing has ever happened to us, and we agreed casually before to be together, and I wanted to break up with her for a long time. I have realized that the person I really love is actually... It's no longer necessary to discuss this. I interrupted him coldly with indifferent eyes. The water in the bathroom is in the bucket, and the knee-high faucet leaks all year round. In order to save some water bills, I keep taking the plastic bucket to continue. The money saved can only be a few taels of broken silver, and it's ridiculous to say unsincere love. At the moment when the scam was exposed, whether it was sincere or not, there was already an insurmountable gap between us. In fact, Lin Hanyan, when you took advantage of my brother's matter to get close to me, did you ever think that the boomerang would also be on your head one day? What do you mean? I didn't respond. I just frowned and opened the door to ask him to go out. When he saw my decisive expression, his eyebrows were a little hurt. Then he stuffed the things on the ground into his bag, and stood up. Don't pretend to be depressed anymore. Because there is one more person like you in the world. The more serious the stigmatization of depression, the more difficult it is for real patients to get help. There will be one more person like Jiang Qilua. After a long time, the man in front of him nodded slowly. Then Lin Hanyan took out a bag of ribs and lotus root from behind the door. He saw the message I sent for extra meals. Can you make lotus root soup for me one last time? No, your chef will do better. I only like what you do. Luo, why can't you believe me once and give me another chance? His voice is already choked. I didn't think that Lin Hanyan, who regained his high status as the Prince of Shangqingcheng, would also have a pleading look on his face. At this moment, everything is almost not in line with the setting of the poor game. Whether his words were true or not, I was always silent indifferently. He knew that I was refusing, and wanted to hold my hand and finally droop. Before going out, Lin Hanyan's eyes turned red, and he looked back at me. Do you still love me? I don't love you. Can you love me again? Can't. 8. After Lin Hanyan left, I began to clean up the clutter at home. I'm going back to school next week. In the middle of the night, I sat on the sofa and looked at a box in the corner of the wardrobe. Locked. It is a relic left by his younger brother Jiang Qilua. He and I are twins. After our parents divorced, we had our own families. We are like the huge cost of our parents when they were young and frivolous. No one is willing to pay the bill, and no one is willing to look back. Therefore, after junior high school, Jiang Qilua and I could only rely on the minimum alimony to depend on each other. Thinking of this, my heart was sour and unbearable, and I held a jewelry box tightly in my hand. This is a 6-pointed star necklace inlaid with broken diamonds. As a birthday present given to me by Jiang Qi in the year he left, he smiled brightly when he sent me off, and put the necklace on my neck with his own hands. Sister, this is the necklace I bought with my own money. Do you like it? My sister looks so good in it, more beautiful than a model. Although this one is not expensive, I will try my best to wear all the beautiful gems in the world on my sister. The teenager's eyes were sincere. I poked his one-sided pear vortex and nodded happily. Jiang Qilua, I believe in you, so I have been waiting for you. Under the foam board of the jewelry box, something was shaking. I picked it up and found a key. When Jiang Qilua sent me the year before last, he didn't have this key. He should have put it in later. I took it out and thought for a moment, and my eyes fell on the box that had been painted off in the corner. The sound of the lock fell. There are only 4 things in it. An oil painting full of withered sunflowers, one Zhang's favorite album of the band, a diary, and a note with the account password. I looked at the black diary, picked it up and put it between my knees. Looking through it from the beginning, the previous content was just trivial. And which girl in the school confessed to him? This is also natural. Jiang Qilua was born handsome and fair, with a pair of peach blossom eyes and affectionate, but his temperament was alienated and reserved. I have received a lot of love letters and snacks for him, since he was a child. But maybe because he was abandoned with me since he was a child. Even if he was loved by others, he was always delicate and sensitive. So he developed the habit of keeping a diary. After entering a university, Jiang Qilua, who was born with a good voice, quickly became the lead singer of the school band. In every performance, there were fans who screamed for him. As I recalled the content, I paused slightly at the fingertips of a page. Because of Shenju's name, it actually appeared in the diary, and the appearance later is becoming more and more frequent. 9. In fact, I can expect that there will be no good fruit to eat after returning to school. After all, Shenju can't give up on beating Lin Hanyan. I just didn't expect that her target would come so quickly. I looked at the bed that originally belonged to me, which was full of takeaway and express garbage, and even the table under the bed was written with the insulting words bitch Xiaosan in red paint. Yang Nian, a professional classmate who has a good relationship with me, stood beside him at a loss. Mingluo, I stopped those seniors but it was useless. They said that you mess with someone you shouldn't have messed with. Yang Nian took the garbage in my hand, and his tone was a little guilty. I showed a comforting smile, and continued to tidy up the bed. And Mingluo, have you seen the school forum? It is said that you interfered in the relationship between Shenju and Lin Hanyan, of the Institute of Mechanical and Electrical Engineering. Now hundreds of people have been scolded below. I see that the evidence inside is still quite sufficient. Are these true? I stopped wiping the bedboard, frowned, took her mobile phone, slid my finger, and simply flipped through the content. Most of them are photos of me and Lin Hanyan going to school together, and screenshots of Shenju and Lin Hanyan chatting together during the summer vacation of their freshman year. But the two have never been officially announced. I twitched the corners of my mouth speechlessly. I just wanted to beat me, so I said at this point that they were originally a couple, so that I could splash dirty water on me. Let outsiders think that I am indeed an inexpensible intervener from the timeline. I didn't respond to Yang Nian's question of whether it was true or false. I just thought for a moment, and took out my mobile phone to call Shenju. Pick it up after 3 sounds that I went straight to the point. I'm Jiang Mingluo. I'll wait for you at the cafe at the North Gate at 3 p.m. The playful sound at the other end stopped, and then Shenju sneered and said, Yo, who am I? Jiang Datsai girl now regrets that she wants to apologize. It's too late. I don't have spare time to see you. It's about Jiang Qilua. Shenju, who originally wanted to say dirty words, stopped talking after being interrupted by me. After a long silence, the other end responded, I see. 10. Although the sunshine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not as hot as noon, it is still poisonous. I stirred the latte in the cup and took a sip. I thought back to the few words about Shenju in the diary. At this time, wind chimes rang at the door of the cafe. The sound of high heels stepping on the ground stopped in front of me. Shenju was wearing a blue and white suspender skirt. This was the first time I looked directly at her appearance. The cute style of small facial features, but the eyes are always full of anger that does not match his temperament. I lowered my eyebrows and slipped my mouth in my heart, but it was still disgusting. She sat down in front of me, put down the brand bag in her hand, and asked, What's the matter with Jiang Qilua? I didn't say anything to him and go straight to the topic. You like crossing the river together, don't you? Shenju's hand holding the menu stopped, and then the pink-purple manicure on the foot was instantly clenched. A trace of sadness flashed in her eyes, but it disappeared after only 2 seconds. Where did you hear that? How can I like that kind of poor man? It's funny. His tone was as domineering as usual, but he pulled the corners of his mouth unnaturally. You have appeared many times in Jiang Qilua's diary. He said that you have confessed to him 27 times. I slowly put down the stirred teaspoon in my hand and looked at her in a tone. The air is filled with the fragrance of coffee beans. At this time, the boss is still busy in the back kitchen. Shenju's pupil shrank. She opened her mouth but stopped talking, and finally did not deny it. She supported her forehead with her right hand, lowered her eyelashes and stopped looking at me. There was no positive response, and the evasive attitude suddenly stimulated my nerves. I put the painting aside on the table. It's the relic of Jiang Qilua, full of paintings of withered sunflowers. So, why do you like Jiang Qilua and plagiarize his paintings? Why did you hack his quota? Do you know how important this competition is to him? His favorite things since he was a child are singing and painting. Jiang Qi committed suicide on the 10th day after his painting, The Lost Sunflower, was plagiarized. And the person who copied him was Shenju. She turned her head and looked at the painting framed by me, and suddenly her emotions were full of hatred. Even after his death, he still played with his family like this. Shenju, you're like... Her chest suddenly fluctuated violently, and her emotions were almost out of control. The word like seemed to sting her. Shenju picked up the cup and smashed it on the ground. He stood up like crazy and shouted at me with red eyes. What do you know? As an older sister, what do you know about him? Why do you question my love for him? Yes, I like him, but I like someone so much for the first time since I was a child. And I gave him everything I could. I grabbed 10 of his favorite band records. I don't know what brand of sneakers he likes, so I bought them all for him. I felt dizzy when I saw him like to play bullshit shooting games, but I still learned from scratch in order to have a common topic with him. Whether it was money or sincerity, I knelt down and gave it to him. What do you know? When did I be so humble? He rejected me. 27. Spring fall evening maple 9 times 10 to the power of 121. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I can stick to it. Because I really like Jiang Qilua. Shenju cried bitterly, and her throat was already hoarse. She sat on the sofa, looking at me desperately, and tears kept gushing out. But at this moment my heart, which was still controllable, completely made waves. I couldn't understand such a truth, so I continued to question. So why? Why plagiarize him? Do you know that he left on the 10th day after the game? Do you know how deep the wound on Jiang Qilua's wrist was, and how determined he was to die? Shenju, tell me, aren't you one of the murderers who killed him? I was so anxious that I didn't breathe well, and the nightmare-like scene appeared in my mind again. Shenju's lips moved in the face of my question. She did not respond, and her eyes were full of confusion. She took out a lady's cigarette from her bag with trembling all over her body. When she was about to light it, she was stopped by the clerk. She simply crushed the cigarette little by little, and she said, "That weekend he went to a well-known business show I recommended, and when he came back, he seemed to be a different person. When I went to ask him how his performance was, Jiang Qilua seemed to kill me, saying that I was the person he hated the most. He scolded me as a bitch. The way he pointed at me and insulted me that day. I can think of it when I close my eyes. You don't know how desperate I am. My heart is about to suffocate. I don't know what happened, but I just heard from my father that it was a great opportunity to have a star agent for this business performance. So I secretly told Jiang Qilua. But after that, I was suddenly pushed away by him like a death sentence. I also have my own pride. If he doesn't love me, but why do you insult me like this? After that, I gave up liking him, and even wanted to take revenge on him." She choked up and couldn't finish speaking. But everyone understands that if you don't love, it's easy to hate because of love. As Shenju said, such a person who grew up with stars and the moon wants nothing. Since you can't get it desperately, it's all ruined. Therefore, her hatred for Jiang Qilua did not stop after his death, and spread to me, robbing my poor student subsidy and letting Lin Hanyan fool me. But it's a continuation of hatred. Why do you know about me and Jiang Qilua? He cherishes you as a sister the most, doesn't he? He hides everything from you except the good news. I'm afraid that you will worry about him a little. To be honest, I envy you for making him so concerned. The ice in the cup has slowly melted, and some latte has flowed out of the edge of the cup. I rubbed the cocoon on my hand, and recalled Jiang Qilua's beautiful words. I read the diary he left behind. So has he always hated me, or has he even a little good impression? I can't answer this for him. When Shenju in front of him heard the words, his eyebrows suddenly lost their brilliance, and even hatred was lost. In the diary, in the timeline where Jiang Qilua cursed Shenju, there was indeed a business performance. After that, his diary painting style changed from the beginning to ordinary sadness and joy. It became full of pages. Shenrong, go to hell. The force of penetrating the paper. Every stroke seems to want to tear the person under the pen. It is a hatred that is difficult to summarize and describe in words. But he didn't write down anything except these 4 words. And I have no way of knowing the reason and other details. I looked up at the dejected Shenju and asked, "Let me ask you one last question. Shenrong, is it your father? The leader of the school board?" Shenju came to his senses, and was a little puzzled by this irrelevant question, but he still nodded. "Yes, he is my father." The popularity of the 11 school forum continues to rise. On the way back to the dormitory, there are many men and women passing by around, and I was thinking about Jiang Qilua's affairs, and I couldn't even react when someone deliberately bumped into me. A figure stood beside me. "Don't you look at the road when you walk?" I looked sideways. It was Lin Hanyan. He wore a cap and cursed at the person who had just bumped into me. This sound made the passers-by stop constantly. Some people even picked up their mobile phones and took pictures of our faces. Adulterous husband and prostitute. These two dared to walk together. Really shameless. I ignored the discussion of others and frowned at Lin Hanyan. "Why are you here?" He lowered his eyes with worry in his eyes and said in a low voice, "I have posted to clarify that you are innocent and ignorant. But I'm still worried that someone will attack you like you did just now." I rubbed my painful shoulder and stared at him. "I don't want to think about who brought these. You haven't been in the past 2 days." Before he hesitated, a stone quickly smashed in my direction at this moment. Lin Hanyan sensed it one step ahead of me, and immediately stood in front of me. I turned my head and looked at the position where I was thrown. The boy in denim quickly disappeared from the crowd. Although Lin Hanyan reacted in time, the stone still scratched his cheek and shed blood. He covered his face painfully, pulled up the corners of his mouth, and glanced at me from time to time. It seems that he is deliberately waiting for my comfort. I sighed in my heart and whispered to him, "Lin Hanyan, you don't have to do this. We can't do it. Whatever you do, I won't look back." His eyes, which were still a little hopeful, were completely gloomy. But as if to comfort himself, he muttered, "I won't give up." "What on earth are you obsessed with?" I'm very puzzled. I don't understand why people who fool sincerity still regret their mistakes, instead of looking for the next prey. I've never been so painful and remorseful, and I don't know This feeling is very strange. I only know that I love you and feel ashamed of you, so I can feel better when I see you or do something for you. Lin Hanying confessed. It's just that at this moment, the silver ring on the middle finger of his left hand shines cheaply under the street lamp. Like our year, mistakes are worthless. 12. The post about accusing me of being a junior was deleted by the publisher in the middle of the night. It was originally full of abuse throughout the forum, but now it has been cleaned up. Since then I have never been targeted by Shinju. The days have returned to the calm of the past, except for Lin Hanying's daily disturbance, which makes me worried. Another sleepless night. I logged in the account password left by Jiang Qilua. That's his painting blogger account, with more than 30,000 followers. In this field it is a little famous. His ID is Ninja Winter. Since childhood, Jiang Qilua has shown amazing talent in the field of painting and music. Even in a somewhat tight real environment, I couldn't provide him with the best education, but he could still shine to the greatest extent. I swiped the mouse and browsed the previous news. Most of the original works are furry small animals and natural scenery, but it was still at that point. Jiang Qilua participated in the business performance in the next semester. Change of painting style. The furry animal turned into a dark giant, swallowing him and tearing him apart. In fact, in Retrocell, everything happened too fast during that time. When I found out that he began to take antidepressants, it was only 2 months when he left. At that time, he was irritable and unstable. I tried to care about him again and again, but I was turned away. At that time, I was stunned and had no choice but to follow him. Later, Jiang Qilua's decision to leave made me desperate, and at a loss to get a reason. It's just tossing and turning. Everyone said that suicide due to depression is the answer. Do you know Jiang Qilua of the College of Arts? I heard that he committed suicide because of depression some time ago. Is it true? There is still a holiday. The school has been holding psychological education lectures recently, just for this reason. At that time, I had just finished Jiang Qilua's funeral. On the way back to the dormitory, I heard the discussion between the 2 girls in front of me. In the truth in front of me, I began to be paralyzed and began to give in. He even gradually accepted the cause of death, and no longer struggled with other possibilities. It's just that now, Jiang Qilua's relics have opened up another opening. My thoughts converged. The sound of roommates breathing in their sleep is deep and shallow. My hand sliding the mouse paused slightly, and clicked into the private message of Jiang Qilua's account. Most of them are urged by fans. When the update was stopped at the beginning, many people came to urge it every day. It's just that it's been 2 years since he left, and no one remembers the blogger Rendong recently. Until I found an account. The user's avatar is a winter scenery, and the ID is she. The private messages above that lasted for 2 years were all after Jiang Qilua left. There are confessions and crying complaints, and there are unwillingness and regrets. In the content, I found that she is also a student of a university, and the latest private message is, Jiang Qilua, I'm sorry. I know the truth, but I can't help you take revenge. Seeing this, the originally gloomy avatar suddenly lit up, and she went online. I sent her a message. I'm Jiang Mingluo, the blogger's sister. Can I meet you? A few seconds later the other side responded. Okay. 13. She asked me to meet on the lawn of the playground at night. She was wearing a black dress. The moment she saw me her gray eyes shone. She recognized me at once. And I also recognized her, the mole between her eyebrows. The girl in front of me was the student committee member of Jiang Qilua's high school class. She once asked me to give Jiang Qilua sheet music, which was a guitar score she copied by hand. Inside is Jiang Qilua's favorite English song, The Falling Summer. The reason why I was impressed by she was that Jiang Qilua was the only one who saw this gift that year, and his eyes were bright. He likes this gift the most. She sat beside me and looked at the freshman opposite, singing in a circle, with a smile on his lips. I used to sit here and watch Jiang Qilua sing. At that time, there were many more people surrounding him than now. I need to search 360 degrees to find an angle to see his side face. There was nostalgia in her eyebrows, and her voice was also soft and gentle. As if time had returned to the previous year, Jiang Qilua sat in the middle of the playground, playing the guitar and singing original love songs. It's just that the noise around her is getting deeper and deeper, and her expression is getting darker and darker. I regret it, sister. I have a crush on Jiang Qilua, and this is the 6th year. I followed him to a university, but until he left, I couldn't formally confess to him. If he knew that there was one more person in the world who loved him, the idea of whether he would leave would fade a little. She choked in his throat, and she confided into me with a sour expression. I raised my hand and patted her on the shoulder to comfort her, but I found that she was terribly thin, with almost only bones left. She looked in the direction of the crowd again, but his eyes seemed to remember something, becoming calm and cold. Sister, do you know Shunrong, the leader of the school? My eyebrows jumped and I nodded slightly. It was he who killed Jiang Qilua. I went to the scene during Jiang Qi's big business performance. After that, I wanted to stop him from confessing, and see him get into Shunrong's car with the members of his band. It was he who lied to Jiang Qilua that an entertainment company was interested in him, and wanted to sign him. So he set up a game to have dinner together. But after that, Zhou kept shaking when he mentioned these things. The evening wind blew up the corners of her skirt, and I could feel that her whole body was also shaking. She held her arms tightly, and couldn't help bursting into tears. After Jiang Qilua's death, I have been secretly investigating Shenrong. Intuitively, I can't get rid of him. I know that he often has dinner with the people of the school board at the school's Mingyu Hotel. I went there to work part-time for 2 years. I finally recorded the evidence after he was drunk. She lowered her head, and looked for her mobile phone from her bag. She moved so much that a bottle of medicine fell out. I was stunned. After seeing it clearly, the tip of my nose suddenly turned sour. I know what kind of medicine this is used for treatment. Jiang Qilua has taken it, and I have also bought it for Lin Hanyan. Her thin and bony hands turned on a recording tremblingly, and handed me a headset. At first, it was a noisy background sound, and several men were flattering each other. At this time, suddenly a low male voice said, "It's not interesting to be delivered to your door this time. Mr. Shen is still picky. I think this little male star is not bad, and I can't even get your eye." It's far from it. I won't lie. It's still my favorite lead singer of the previous band these years. I've been in a long time, and I've been thinking about it at the orientation meeting. Later, I lied to him to sign his whole band in the Star Entertainment Club. Only then did he come to the drinking party, poured the sea of wine, and then got to bed. But the thin skin and tender meat are worth it. Which one? It's the one who committed suicide in the back, called Jiang Heluo. Yes, Jiang Qilua. His suicide scares me. Hurry up and ask the school to arrange a psychological lecture. It's really unmade, otherwise I can bring you a few to play together. The noise in the background gradually went away, and a slight electric current came from the headphones. It was not until the smell of blood overflowed in my mouth that I barely came back to my senses. My chest fluctuated violently, and my brain seemed to lack oxygen, which made me speechless. I trembled and took out a plastic bag from my bag, and covered my mouth and nose. On the day Jiang Qilua committed suicide, on the way to the hospital, I also had such confusion and difficulty breathing. The doctor said it was respiratory alkalosis. If the situation is urgent, you can cover your mouth and nose with a plastic bag for first aid. I wrote it down. She saw the abnormality of my state. She quickly put away her mobile phone, squatted up and surrounded me. In the process of slowly recovering my mind, I finally pieced together everything that had happened to Jiang Qilua. The earth-shattering changes in his diary and paintings. He suddenly said bad words to Shinju. He suddenly became depressed and collapsed and decided to die. I'll have the answers. After seeing my eyes gradually clear, she couldn't help it anymore. He hugged my neck tightly and cried loudly, "Sister, but what should we do? Even if we have this recording, we can't compete with Shenrong. He is famous and powerful in Qingqing, and we can't do anything at all." At that time, his younger brother must have been so desperate. What is the only way for ordinary people to win in the face of people at the top of power? Is there only one way to swallow? A recording, a victim who has passed away, can't form a favorable chain of evidence. Even if Shen Rongjin is sentenced, is the punishment really enough? Even, it is very likely to be escaped by him. I looked up at the sky, and the dense clouds slowly covered the moon. He lowered his eyes, wiped away Joshi's tears, and raised an encouraging smile at the corners of his mouth. "Thank you for your hard work these years. I'm in the place of Jiang Qilua. Thank you. Thank you for liking him for so many years." 14 After that night passed, I began to have a high fever. When I was awake and asleep, the chaotic nightmares intersected. Finally, after the end of an important professional course, I fainted in front of the classroom, and was sent to the hospital. I questioned Jiang Qilua with blood and tears, why he woke up in the dream of leaving him at home. In this way the plot does not repeat, and the experience does not change, and the dream has changed a lot back and forth. Under the dim yellow light, I had a severe headache, and I opened my sour eyes. I saw a figure sitting at the head of the bed, that he was wearing a blue and white shirt, and his eyes focused on me. After confirming that I finally woke up, my eyes suddenly became red again. Lin Hanyan raised the hot water on the table, and helped me up. My mouth was dry and my tongue was dry, and I drank it all in 3 or 2 mouthfuls. "The doctor said you were infected with the virus. Why don't you pay attention to your health?" he asked, but I didn't respond. "What on earth happened to you?" I stared at the ceiling, and still didn't respond. Just turn a deaf note. The next month, Lin Hanyan stayed by my side day and night, and took care of me in detail. At first, he would ask me a few words, but I was always silent, which made him give up communication. The day before preparing to be discharged from the hospital, I looked at Lin Hanyan, who lowered his head to help me focus on peeling apples, and was distracted. The moonlight was in full that night, and the ward was playing an ancient love movie for the sacrifice of the lover. In the heart-rending cry of the actors, that I asked Lin Hanyan softly, "Do you really like me?" He looked up at me, his eyes lit up, and nodded without any hesitation. I like it very much." After hearing the words, I held the 6-pointed star necklace between my neck with my right hand. "If you really like me, then I want to kill someone. Can you help me?" 15 Lin Hanyan took advantage of the family relationship and the recent desire of the Lin family to start a new education brand to invite Shenrong to dinner at home. The Lin family and the Shen family were originally friends, and Shenrong did not set up a defense. Half an hour after the agreed time, a black car stopped outside the abandoned factory where I was waiting. Lin Hanyan pulled the unconscious Shenrong out of the car and threw him on the ground. You don't have to worry about the rest. Thank you. I won't mention you when I surrender. I put aside the relationship without emotion, but he looked at me with a sad look, as if he still didn't want to see such a choice. Jiang Mingluo, your brother is dead. Why can't you let go of the past and start over? You are like this. Stop talking. It should be like this, right? He killed my brother. Shouldn't he kill him to pay for his life? In addition to the obsession of being an elder sister, I should help him avenge him. I also want to. Since I was a child, I stood in front of Jiang Qilua, ran away the senior students who bullied him for him, helped him drive away the scared spiders and cockroaches, and wiped away the tears that he missed his parents. Therefore, he always says that I am the bravest Superman sister in the world. And this time, after knowing the truth, I shouldn't be cowardly in front of him, right? It should be so. I tied Shenrong to the chair. I cleaned up his clothes. I took out his mobile phone, raised Shenrong's finger, and unlocked it with my fingerprint. The purpose is very clear. At the bottom of the album, there is an anonymous album. Click in as expected. There are an amazing number of videos. People like Shenrong are very likely to do this. Turning down, I finally found the late spring of the previous year. After a slight confirmation, I closed my eyes numbly. He picked up the water bottle beside him and woke Shenrong up. He choked, and his turbid little eyes were full of panic. When he looked at me clearly, he was full of puzzlement. Are you? I didn't respond. Shenrong looked around and continued to pretend to be calm and said, Do we have any holidays? Do you remember Jiang Qilua? Shenrong frowned when he heard the words, and his shoulders twisted twice secretly. He was trying to break free from the bondage, but it didn't help. The force of my tying made my palms bleed. I don't know. I think there must be some misunderstanding. I'm his sister. You don't have to be nervous. I just want to ask you a few questions. Until now, he knew my identity and was hopeless. Finally, I couldn't hide my panic and my body began to tremble. It's obviously useless to continue to pretend to be stupid. He knows what hatred is. Shenrong raised his head crazily to beg for mercy, and even threw out a few drops of sweat. Sorry. Your brother's matter is that I was confused after drinking. If you want money compensation or I confess my guilt, I will cooperate. As long as you save me a little life, I can say anything. I looked at her expressionlessly and picked up the pre-prepared knife from the table. Seeing that I was indifferent to the temptation, he began to intimidate me. Think clearly. If you do something out of the word, you have to bear legal responsibility yourself. And as long as I move my fingers, I can make you die in Qingqing without anyone knowing. I sneered and ignored the hand holding the knife. Just thinking about the video just now, he asked. I want to ask you, are there any backups of these videos besides this mobile phone? Shenrong's eyes darkened, and he obviously understood what video I was referring to. The horizontal flesh on his face trembled, and cold sweat flowed more and more. Then he responded tremblingly. No. See here. I raised my hand, and did not hesitate to put the blade in my hand on his right hand, before he reacted. Ah. In an instant, the warehouse was full of Shenrong's painful howl. Tell the truth, don't waste time. I lowered my eyes numbly, and saw the blood gushing out all over the ground. Seeing that he never replied, I raised my hand again, and aimed at his left hand. The second floor of my house. In the third study on the left side of the stairway, the second drawer on the inmost side of the bookcase. The key is the smallest one in the string on the ground. I looked sideways at the set of keys, and considered the authenticity of his words. After confirming that it is basically not a lie, I nodded and continued to pick up the blade. Seeing this, he panicked, and wanted to drive the chair back. You didn't say to answer the question, but... The fear of death made it difficult for Shenrong to express clearly. But it's the last sentence of his life. I frowned. Just what? Forget it, keep your voice down. Maybe I'll be gentle. 16 After everything was cleaned up, it was already 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. I turned off my mobile phone, and thought that there was not much time left for me. It is necessary to explain something before surrendering. I found a home hotel, and took a shower in a hurry. Then he made an appointment with Joshi to meet. She saw that I was still pale and a little worried. Sister, take care of yourself, even if we have no way to avenge Jiang Qilua. You can't live in a mess. You won't be happy to see this. I nodded and dried my messy hair. I didn't plan to tell Joshi what happened last night, so that she thought it was God's eyes. I raised my hand, and took out the gold card that Lin Hanyan gave me from my pocket. I put all the money in it, which was enough for 800,000 yuan. You take this card. She wanted to refuse, but I shook my head. Joshi, you are one of the few people who treat our sister and brother sincerely. In fact, Jiang Qilua and I have not received any kindness since we were young, so the way of giving back may be clumsy. When I was young, I often heard my parents say that Jiang Qilua and I should have drowned in the toilet. At that time, I was only scared when I heard this sentence. But recently, I feel that children who even parents don't want to survive really shouldn't exist in this world. So. That's why he was still dirty and smelly when he was 20 years old in the swamp. Those who want to be protected are torn apart, and those who want to be saved are bubbles. In the end, it is to snatch more years from malice. Seeing this, Joshi suddenly grabbed my hand and slowly turned red on my wrist. Sister, don't think nonsense. It's my luckiest thing to meet Jiang Qilua and you. None of us should exist, especially you. I was stunned and looked at her firm eyes and curled the corners of my mouth. But I felt that she was lying with good intentions. Joshi's tightly clenched hands were still thin and jashed, and his clothes could not be supported. If she didn't meet us, she would have a brighter life. At the end of summer, the cicadas are falling. I raised my hand to trim the broken hair in front of her forehead. Joshi, let's start a new life after this summer. Forget me and Jiang Qilua. 17 After seeing Joshi, I went to find Shinju. She stirred the ice in the cup absent-mindedly, probably because of his father's loss of contact. When he looked through Shenrong's mobile phone last night, he saw Shinju's call. I pressed it off. Her mother died early, and Shenrong raised her since she was a child. Presumably, her feelings will be deeper than ordinary father and daughter. I didn't say anything to Shinju Duo. After all, no matter how reasonable the reason is, she and I are enemies. She plagiarized Jiang Qilua, which is a matter of the nail on the board. So I only handed her an old mobile phone, and the key in Shenrong's study. I destroyed the rest of the keys. There is a recording on her mobile phone of her father Shenrong confessing to violating Jiang Qilua after drinking in Mingyu Hotel, and the video of violating Jiang Qilua in Shenrong's mobile phone, and the location of the video backup. There is also a diary text photo of Jiang Qilua's diary, when he and Shinju got along well in the early stage. She wondered why I gave her this mobile phone. I lowered my eyes and smiled. The password is Jiang Qilua's birthday, remember it? Shinju nodded. 030209. It seems that everything she said at that time was indeed a little credible. After all, I still remember Jiang Qilua's birthday. Shinju, there are only 4 things in Jiang Qilua's relics, one of which is the record of the Yinjiu band you sent. If you read the contents of the mobile phone, you will know the whole truth. When he was alive, he still regarded you as a good friend. Under my deliberate hint, her eyes reproduced crazy expectation, and she took out her mobile phone and planned to look through it. And I didn't stop or stay. 18 I'm going to find a place to sleep. After getting up he surrendered. I slept particularly soundly. When I woke up, I didn't know how long it had been. I turned on my mobile phone, and the strong light stimulated me to frown. After getting used to it, I found the headline pushed not long ago. In Qingqing North Industrial Zone, the case of shattering corpses was extremely cruel. Seeing this, I don't have any anxiety as the originator in my heart. I just browsed the content calmly. In the report, the identity of the deceased was confirmed. He was Shen Rong, the chairman of Shen's enterprise, and the leader of Colonel A. And the murderer of the case is still being hunted down. In the following hot comments, my friend in the bureau said that 67 pieces were cut, and one part was directly. It's the worst nature of Qingqing in recent years. What a big grudge it is. I lowered my head and swiped the screen, still with no emotion. In a moon, put down your mobile phone, and get ready to go to the police station. At this time, a latest push appeared in front of me again. The murderer of the Smolting case has surrendered. I slid my fingers and frowned. What's going on? Clicking on the content, I found that although the report said that the murderer had surrendered, his name was not mentioned. But the only one who knows about this matter is Lin Hanyan. He is the only one I can think of. Could it be that he? My back was a little cold, and the mobile phone in my palm rang at this moment. I looked down and saw that it was my roommate Yang Yen. Lua, where are you? Lin Hanyan asked me to give you something. Can you come and get it now? I calmed down. After a moment of silence, I responded softly, okay. 19 What Lin Hanyan left me was a bank card and a note. Lua, you should stay abroad for 2 years. I'll memorize this matter. After all, my family's relationship can minimize the punishment. Although my father doesn't love me, he is especially afraid that I will embarrass him. He will make peace. Don't worry. And all this, just think of it as I owe you. Don't surrender anymore. Best wishes. I can't tell my inner feelings, but I can feel the cicadas in my ear. When the edge of the note was wrinkled by me, I gradually came back to my senses. I put away my bank card, put it in my pocket, adjusted my mood, and thanked Yang Yan. I took a taxi outside the school gate. The driver asked me where I was going. Send to the North Industrial Zone. Where? Forget it. Go to the cemetery. That night, I stayed in front of Jiang Qilua's grave for 1 night. The next day, I left the country. 20 years abroad. The main theme of my life is to update Jiang Qilua's painting account. Fortunately, I often took over the manuscript before, and there was some level, although it was not as talented as his. But after 5 years, a lot of fans have increased. And this spring, I plan to go back to China. After arriving in Qingqing, Joshi picked him up with a bunch of tulips. She is now a gold medal agent of an entertainment company. When she sat down face to face, she stared into my eyes, and tears were instantly full of tears. Sister, I didn't expect to see you again. Thank you. Thank you for all this. Her voice choked. After half a minute of choking, she continued to say that after Shenrong's death that year, her depression seemed to have completely cured the root of the disease. She finally stopped living in the past, and became more and more numb in remorse. When I heard this, I patted her on the shoulder with relief as in the past. That's great. Finally I have some flesh. At this time, Zhou seemed to remember something, lowered his head, took out a card from his bag and handed it to me. Sister, here is 1.42 million yuan, which is my salary in the past few years plus the 800,000 yuan you gave me. I have saved it. Sister, don't refuse, you must accept it. I didn't pick it up. When Zhou saw this, he put it in my hand. Then he continued to tell me what had happened over the years. She said that after Lin Hanyan surrendered, she obtained the understanding of the victim's family. That is, the understanding of Shinju. After that, Lin Hanyan's family invited the top lawyer, and brought out the diagnosis results of bipolar disorder in the hospital in the early years. Under many conditions, Lin Hanyan was sentenced to 10 years, and Shinju, for some reason, went insane shortly after his father's death 5 years ago. She has been staying in a mental hospital now, but every year at the end of spring, she will go to the cemetery to sweep the grave. Hearing this, I nodded slightly. When these people are mentioned, they are strange and familiar, as if they knew each other in their previous lives. I want to ignore it subconsciously. Talk to the end. I asked about Joshi's gossip. So have you ever been in love in the past 5 years? Her eyes darkened, and her hands were crossed and rubbed. No. Why? Because the people I met when I was young were so amazing. Late at night on the 21st, the evening breeze blows by. I opened my account and published a winter landscape painting left by Jiang Chihua before his death. There is a line of text below the painting. Its content is, I only hope that in the next life, you can live your life smoothly. End.